put our phones in our pockets, please. Thank you. All right, so we are talking about populations and samples today. Yay. So suppose we are interested in the graduation rates at U.S. high schools in 2025, which would have been last school year, versus 2019, which was the last high school graduating class pre-COVID. Ideally, as statisticians, we would like to talk to everybody, because then that would be a perfect representation of our population. So all high schools in the US form our population of interest. These are the people we would like to talk to if we lived in a perfect world. When we actually get data from every single individual in the population, we call that a census. Can you think of a real world example of a census? Every 10 years. Yes, the US does a census every 10 years. We call it the US Census. It's called a census because they interview every household in the US. And they collect information from every household. Well, yeah, because you're a minor. Why would they do that to you? They send it to the head of the household. So when I lived on my own, I filled it out. When I lived with my parents during COVID, they filled it out because I was in their household. They send it to the head of household. They don't send it to every living human being. That's just crazy. Unfortunately, that's not really practical. What are some downsides to trying to perform a census? So you have to actually track everybody down. That can be difficult. What else? Not everyone is truthful, which we're going to get to later. There's a name for that. What else? That's just a lot of data. There's hundreds of millions of people in the US, yeah? How long is it going to take us to talk to those hundreds of millions of people? Right? That's a lot of time. And if we want to compact that and make it happen faster, the government has to hire a lot of people to go out and talk to everybody, yeah? Which costs a lot of money. So either lots of time or lots of money, sometimes both. So censuses are ideal, but not practical for most of us as researchers, right? Funding is not infinite, unfortunately. So as practicing statisticians, we usually collect a sample from our population. And a sample is a subset of the whole population. So instead of talking to every US high school, I'm going to talk to some of the US high schools. And the question is, how do I choose those some of the US high schools? Which is what we're talking about today. A sample survey is how we get data from that sample. Survey, I know how to spell. And there are usually some steps that build up to us collecting data. There are things that as statisticians we need to do first. So when I'm performing a statistical study, I don't like alliteration. The first thing I need to do as a researcher is formulate my research question. What question is it I am trying to answer? What is it that I am interested in studying? Usually when you are fleshing out your research question, you're also fleshing out things like, what is my explanatory variable? What is my response variable? Next, we have to identify the population of interest. In our high school example, is my population of interest every single US high school? Is it just public high schools? Is it charter high schools? Is it private high schools? I got to be specific. Flesh that out, yeah? Next thing I need to do is identify what we want to measure. What data do I want from this population? If I am performing this study comparing graduation rates pre-COVID versus post-COVID, what information would I like for my high schools? Okay, and what is a graduation rate made up of? Two numbers. It's a percentage. Good. So how many kids entered grade 12 versus how many kids successfully exited grade 12? And I need that for 2 years. So that's 4 data points. Number of seniors, number of graduating for 2025, number of seniors, number of graduating for 2019. Good. Very good. Last thing, we create a sample survey. Now that I know what I want to measure, I create the survey, I send it out to the high schools that I have selected. Yeah. And again, the question is, how do I select which high schools to talk to? So we're going to do an example about selection. How do we do selection? And we're not going to use all US high schools because that population's way too big. So for our population, we're using the words in the first paragraph of Federalist Paper 51. Yes, your government teachers would be proud. I have put the words in that paragraph in an Excel sheet for you. They are ordered. They're in rows of 10, so you can easily count where you are in the paragraph. The bit.ly for that spreadsheet is here. We need probably 2 Chromebooks at every table that are open to that website so that everybody can look at our population of words. When you are at that website, give me a thumbs up and then patiently wait for further directions, please. It's my new timer. It wasn't consistently, like I'd have to stand there and hold it and wait for it to tick because it fell off the board once, and so it was kind of, so this one is fancy and colorful and it talks to you. Yeah. I will later. Just a few minutes. Yes, it does change colors. I don't know how to keep it on because I just bought it. So I have to figure out how to. Oh, you just want me to. It'll still shut off in the middle of timing.
Does it do voice commands?
It does not do voice commands. Did you make an e-hall pass? Make the e-hall pass. I will approve it. All right. I am assuming by the noise level, we have at least 1 Chromebook at that site. So if I can get your attention back up front, I'm going to give you the next set of directions. So for the first sample we're collecting, I want every person at your table to choose 5 words from that paragraph. You're going to count the letters in those words and write them in the 5 blanks. And then you are going to calculate the average for the 5 words that you chose. Once you've calculated that average, sit and wait patiently. When everybody's done, we're going to make a dot plot of the class data. Yes? Everybody chooses 5 words, calculates their average. Any 5 words. You get to decide how you choose them. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. As long as it gives you the link, you should be able to click the link. There should be like a link to a Google Doc. I'm going to call your name. You're going to give me your average, yeah? If you are not the one that I am talking to, please keep your mouth closed so that I can hear, because I'm old and I'm tired. And sometimes you guys talk quietly. Okay, let's see if I can remember everyone in my class without looking. We'll start with Amanda. So 4.6 rounds up to 5. Melanie. Which rounds up to 6. Bailey. 2. So 2. Marissa. So 6. Okay. Alexa. 7. Okay. Perfect. Floor. 7. Very good. Margarita. 9.4. So 9. Very good. Samantha? 9.4. Okay, Miguel? 6. Ostap? 10. Amy? So 8. Ilani? 7.2, so 7. Jinan? 4. Okay. Prathana? So 5. Good. Gabe S? So 5. Gabe P? So 7. Isaac? 4.2, so 4. George? 3.8, so 4. Isabel? 3.4. Good. Aaliyah? So 4. Ricky? 4. Maria? Is 6. Alex? 6 point what? 4, so 6. Good. Marilyn. I know your name. I had to remember who else was sitting there. Hey, I got pretty far. Give me a break. I'm sorry. 5. Thank you, Marilyn. 3. You got to pick one. Which one is it round 2? So, okay. King. King got 5. Will got 6. Sadie. So 7. And I think that's everybody who had an average who was in the class. Yes? Did I miss anybody who was here? No. Okay. So, interesting. That's almost perfectly uniform. And then we got a little bit of a tail on either side. Fascinating. So, let's take a quick survey. Bailey, how'd you choose your words? Yeah, so the short ones. You chose the short ones. Good. King, how'd you choose your words? Tried to make a sentence. Marilyn, how'd you choose your words?
I thought about sentences as well.
Thought about sentences. Ricky, how about you? All the ones who pick 4 letters. Isaac, what about you? Just random words. So you will notice as we go around the room, very different methods on choosing. All of them at some point involved a little bit of personal decision or personal bias. As researchers, we do not want our personal opinions or our specific point of view to influence the data that we get from our population. The question is, how do we remove us from the decision-making process? And the answer is randomization. So the next sample we're going to collect is going to be random. And before we follow these directions, we need to do one important thing. Right now, your calculator likely has 0 as the starting point for its random number generator. Meaning when you run the random number generator, everyone's going to get the same list of 5 numbers, which is not what we want. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to get your calculator out, and then I need everyone to quietly listen and follow directions so that we can randomize everybody's starting point. Yes? You need 30 seconds, get your calculator out. We're only going to do this once. Bummer, you're going to have to bring your calculator to see me when you have it, so we can do this for you. Calculator, 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 calculator. No calculator, frowny face. Yeah? What? You don't even have to randomize hers. You can use hers because when you do the function call again, it'll give her a different list. So you can share her calculator today. You don't have to redo it.
That's why I'm not like,
Yeah.
Can I use her calculator after she's done?
Yes, you may. And you don't have to do what we're doing now because she will have already done it. And check. Calculator, calculator. All right. I need attention up front. I need mouths closed. Shh. In order to ensure that everybody's calculator is seated with a different number, you are going to put your 7-digit cell phone number onto your screen. You're just going to type the 7 digits of your cell phone number, ignore the area code. 402-9050. I do not have 831 as an area code, so I have not given you my phone number. But put it here. Yes, here. Once your cell phone is in here, please close your mouth and look at me so I know you are done so I can give you the next set of directions. Don't press enter. Don't press anything else. Just put your cell phone number in. Yes. I do not want you to include the dash because that will be a subtraction sign and we don't want to subtract the numbers. We just want the number. 7 digits. It is taking a disturbingly long time for some of you to type your cell phone numbers and shut your mouths. Okay. Next, we want to store that number. So there is a store button, STO, right above the on button. You should press that. And on your screen, you should see a little arrow pop up behind your cell phone number. Next, we need to tell the calculator where to store it. To do that, we are going to press Math right below the green button. You're going to go over to the Prob menu, P-R-O-B, and you are going to press Enter to select option 1. And you should see RAND pop up behind the arrow sign. If that is what you see on your calculator screen, press Enter to run that command. And all it's going to do is spit back your cell phone number. If that's what it did it correctly. We are now ready to follow the directions on the board. When you do the directions on the board, new line on the calculator, Math Prob option 5, and the information you are giving that command is the smallest number in our data set, word number 1, the biggest number in our data set, word number 130, and how many numbers I want. I want 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah? Rand int. Rand int, because we want 5 random integers. When you run this and you get a curly bracket and a list of 5 numbers, those are not word lengths. Those are locations in our paragraph. You then need to go find those words in the paragraph and count how long they are. I am going to give you 5 minutes to do this. We're going to go through the same process. We should have an average length now. I'm going to call on each person. I need the average length. Do it in the same order that I did it last time. It does do that, yes. Okay, Amanda. Oops, 3. Very good. Mel. Mel doesn't have yours. Bailey. Frowny face. Marissa. 4. Remind me to come back to you. Samantha. You're still working on it. Alexa. So 5. Good. Floor. Still working on it. Margarita. 2.6. So 3. Miguel. 5. Ostap. 6. Amy. 6. Ilani. So 4. Do you know what Jinan got on her paper? So 6. Prathana. 4. Gabe S. 6. Gabe P. So 5. Isaac. 6. George. 3.2. So 3. Okay. Isabel. 3. Ricky. So 3. Marlene. So 4. Did Aaliyah get one before she left? I'll come back to you in just a second if you could do that, Isabel. Thank you. Maria. So 5. Marilyn
4.
is a 4. Alex is a 6. Bree is a 5. King 3. Okay. Will is a 6. Sadie is a 3. Okay, back to the table. Who did I miss at the front table? Okay, so Bailey, what'd you get? 5. Is it 5? Mel, what'd you get? 4.4, so a 4. Back table, Samantha, do you have one? 14. And then who else at that table? Floor? 70? I think that, oh, so that's the average word. That's not the average length. So I think we'll skip that data point, and that's okay. Isabel? 5.6. So 5.6 would be 6. Okay, is there anybody else I missed? Anybody else I missed? No. Okay. I see people taking pictures. I know, it's upsetting, isn't it? Yeah, no, as statisticians, we really don't like those odd points out there. I'm going to erase it because that is a possible answer. I mean, they could have just picked all the long numbers at random. Yeah? What? Okay, so can you hang on until like the last 5 minutes of class and we'll have some free time? I can do that. Thank you, Flora. Okay, so looking at those pictures side by side. Second one is a lot more uniform than the first one was. But also look at where most of those points sit in those two graphs. What happened to the bulk of the points when we went to the random? Shifted down a little bit, right? This was from 4 to 7. This is from 3 to 6. So on average, when we were picking our own words, we were picking words that were slightly longer than a random model would suggest. Not by a lot, but a little bit. In general, statisticians prefer random because it greatly improves the odds that we get a representative sample from our population. So all of the models that proper statisticians use to collect samples are randomized. And a random sample involves using a chance process to determine which individuals from the population are selected for our sample. Flipping a coin, rolling a die, drawing names from a hat, using a computer to randomize, right? We're not using some personal judgment criteria. We want a random process. Yes, good. Okay. Questions about random sampling? I love the positive thinking, Bailey. Thank you. All right, so on the back, there's one more thing we need to talk about before we jump into sampling methods. And that is the type of studies that we can perform as statisticians. There are generally two categories: observational studies and experiments. Observational studies are what they sound like. We observe the sample. We can take measurements. This may mean asking the person for information. This may mean measuring things like weight, height, blood pressure. If you're doing a medical experiment, taking some blood work. All of that falls under observation. But we do not manipulate the explanatory variable. You are quickly discovering the downside to the no math unit. Lots of writing instead. So, we as researchers are observing systems, collecting numbers, taking measurements, but we are not making changes to the system we are observing in any way. Yeah. Experiments, on the other hand, are where we change one variable and then we measure the response in the other. This is probably what you think of when you think of an experiment. So the researcher makes changes to the explanatory and measures the changes in the response. No, you're okay. So for example, I might tell my students some of them should study using digital flashcards, some of them should study using paper flashcards, and then I compare their test scores on the unit test at the end of that study session. That would be an experiment. I have assigned some of my students digital work, assigned some of my students paper flashcards. I made that decision as a researcher. If it were an observational study, I would ask which of my students use digital, meaning they chose to be in that group by themselves. I would ask my students which one used paper flashcards. My students chose which groups they were in. I did not do that. And then I compare their test results based on how they chose to sort themselves. The downside here is that I have no control over other variables that are not involved in my study. If I'm doing an experiment, when I sort my sample into groups and make changes, I can make sure as the researcher that those groups are approximately identical in terms of other factors. Equal distribution of genders in every group. Equal distribution of age ranges in every group. So that the groups are functionally the same, and the only difference is the change I made to the explanatory. So these are more controlled. These are easier and less expensive to do. There's also some ethical concerns. Can you think of something I might be interested in studying where I wouldn't want to force a person to do it? There's no ethical concern there. They may be unhappy about it. Talking like genuine ethical concerns about asking a participant to do it. Ideas? I can think of one.
Maybe like health issues, like asking somebody to become like obese to check like what health.
Good. If you're interested in studying things like obesity, you don't want to ask somebody to change their diet so they gain 200 pounds. If you're interested in studying the effects of smoking, you don't want to ask a non-smoker to start smoking 2 packs a day, right? That's unethical. If we're comparing the effectiveness of parachutes, I don't want to force people to use a placebo, which is a parachute that doesn't open, right? There are things that we should not be asking human beings to do. And so there are studies that I really can't run as experiments because it is just purely unethical to ask people to do it. We have to run those as observational studies. Some people just do them on rats. Some people do not. You don't. Parachutes on rats. Thank you for distracting the class, Bree. Moving on from the rats, we're going to look at two examples. I'm going to have you discuss in your group which category you think they fall in and why. So I need someone with a nice loud voice who can read example A for us. Thank you, Hilani. A, yeah. Very good. So they took kids, gave them different activities, and then gave them tests that measured their reactions in the prefrontal cortex. Very good. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds in your small groups. Discuss observational study or experiment. How do you know? Yes, they are. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You're just ahead of the game. We haven't gotten there. That's why I said two examples, Alex. This is what happens when your teacher is only getting like 3 hours of sleep on average a night and their brain turns to mush. No, I was talking about Alex and the repeated questions at the bottom. No, that was just, my brain is literal mush, and it will be until homecoming's over, and I'm sorry. Okay. I need a volunteer. Yes, Aaliyah. No, never mind. What did you come up with? What do you think it is? Experiment or observational study? So Aaliyah thinks observation. Why do we think observation? Aaliyah doesn't know. I heard Gabe whispering behind Aaliyah. What does Gabe think? So what does Gabe think? And why do you think it's an experiment? We don't have to say it in quite such a sinister way, but yes. Yes, this is an experiment because we could see one group was shown. This wasn't the kids picked. This is one group was intentionally shown fast cartoons. Cartoons. Why can't I talk today? So the researchers assigned the activities. If this were an observational study, the researchers would have sat in a room with the kids and monitored who was doing what for a period of time, and then they would have pulled the kids into a room and given the test and compared the results. I did this pretty routinely when I was taking my child psych class as an undergrad. I had to go sit in a Montessori school for like 4 hours and just stare at the kids and write down what they were doing. It was really boring. Yeah, no, being a psychologist is sometimes exceedingly boring because you're just sitting and staring at people for hours. Okay, next one. I need another reader. Who wants to read? Thank you, Maria. Sorry, she was faster.
any crop that overall health. In particular, those who never visited the coast for 2 from 13 times are likely to report that they have bad health compared to those who visited the coast at least once a week.
Thank you, Marie. Very good. So, same question to your group. Observational, study your experiment. How do you know? Give you 1 minute. Let's get started. Who keeps clicking?
So there's like researchers. What like the people doing research? Would they be called researchees?
So if they are humans, they're usually called subjects. If they are objects, they're usually called units.
Units.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds a little medieval.
They're trying to depersonalize because we don't want any of our personal views or biases to leak in. So we depersonalize the subjects as much as possible. Not to be cruel, but just to prevent. Yeah. All right, Prathana, what did your group come up with? Observational study. Why did we think observational study? So, very good. So we didn't tell the people to go to the beach. They just decided to go for funsies. Very good. All right. You'll notice examples C and D look awfully familiar because I made this after I got home from being on campus for 12 hours and my brain was mush. And so I copy pasted and didn't copy paste the right question. So I am sorry. My brain is mush. I apologize. There is one blank at the bottom we need to fill in because it is important. And it has to do with the allowed inferences that we can make after we perform our study. If we are interested in cause and effect relationships, I have to use a well-designed experiment. Observational studies can hint frequently that there is a relationship between those two changes in the variables. But if I want to prove that A caused B, I have to do it with a controlled experiment. Have to. And somebody in second period yesterday asked me, what does it mean to be well-designed? We're going to answer that through 3B and 3C. And we're going to start today with what a proper randomized sample looks like, because that is our first step. Okay. Questions on experiments and observational studies? No. Okay, I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to switch to the next packet. We're going to start 3B, talk about sampling methods. It's apple juice. Don't judge me. Shh. Okay. So we know from our last little paper that randomized sampling is better than non-random sampling. And the gold standard for randomized sampling is a simple random sample. That is the most basic. Almost all the other randomized samples we're going to talk about use the SRS process at some point in their procedure. We're going to call them SRSs because saying simple random sample over and over is exhausting. Simple random sample becomes a tongue twister. All right, so An SRS of size n is a sample that is chosen in such a way that every group of n individuals in the population has an equal chance to be selected for the sample. Random samples are better, yes. And there are several reasons for that. We're going to talk about that in a later set of notes. There's several reasons for this. Shh. So if I wanted to collect a simple random sample of the, assuming everyone was here, 31 bodies in the room, how could we do that? I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to talk in your small group. How could we collect a random sample of students from our class? We want 4 randomized students from our group of 31. Give me a list of steps. You have 1 minute. Oh. Yes? I don't know. What do you mean? What did I say?
What was the question? Oh, like, if we wanted to select a sample of 4 for our class on process.
How would you do it? How would you select a random? All right. Do I have a volunteer? Yes, Bree. What did you come up with? How do you spell popsicle? Don't judge me. Hate the English language. Is it SC? That looks wrong. That looks very wrong. Yeah, okay. Well, it's math class. Who cares? Now you know why I majored in math and physics. Yeah. Very good. So popsicle 6 is one way, Marissa. Ooh, so I use the Delta Math random name generator. Yeah. Did I? Yeah. Did anyone else come up with something else? Names in a hat, yeah. I'm glad that you brought up names in a hat, Maria, because that is a very common example of a simple random sample. If you have to do it manually, that's typically what statisticians use to describe it. Is everybody writes their name on a slip of paper, we fold them in half, we shove them in a hat, we shake the hat, somebody reaches in with their eyes closed and picks one. We're going to assume they were all folded the same way. All right, so that's great for a class of 31 students, because that's a finite number of popsicle sticks. If I'm looking at all US high schools, that population starts to get unwieldy very fast. And so we start using technology to help us. You've kind of already seen the process because we used our calculator to help us with this in our last set of notes. So the process when we're doing this with technology is we label the population. Usually, we assign each member of the population a number from 1 to however many people there are in the population. So for our class, it would be 1 through 31. For our Federalist Papers number 51, that was 1 through 130, because there were 130 words in that paragraph. Good. Next is the randomized step. This is where the technology comes in. We use a random number generator. It spits out a list of random numbers, and it'll spit out however many I want for my sample size, which is great. The last was the step that we were struggling a little bit with when we did our last set of notes, which is the selection process. Now that I have a list of random numbers, I have to go back to my population and pull those people from the population. I have to match the number to a person. Or for our Federalist papers, I had to match the number to a word in the list. Yeah? There is one issue that we didn't talk about in our last set of notes, which is how that random number generator is pulling numbers from a list. And there are two possible ways to do it. The first is with replacement. So for names in a hat, I draw a name out of the hat, I open it, I write down that name on a list of paper, I fold it, I stick it back in the hat, I shake the hat before I draw another name. What that means is that individuals can be selected more than once. I can get repeats in my list. The random integer function you used on the TI-84 in our last set of notes was in this category. Did anybody get repeated numbers in their list? No? That's okay. We were pulling 5 numbers from a list of 130, so we wouldn't expect to get repeats in such a big list with such a small sample. But rand_int can give us repeats. Without replacement is the less desirable option, but it is the more common one, which is with names in a hat. I take the name, I look at it, I put it in a separate pile. It doesn't go back in the hat for the next draw. So people can only be selected once. In terms of my computerized random number list, that means those numbers need to be unique. Every number is different from the others. I cannot have any repeats. Because this is 2025 and the school district invested in the fancy models of the TI-84 instead of my old clunker, I'm suddenly very glad I have an old clunker. I just went right out there. You have a command that I do not have. I know, I'm awkward. Feel free to laugh. You should have an option 8 on your random probability menu. You should check that it's there, because if it's not, you're going to need a software update. This guy, I know, and nobody had a cell phone out to catch it. This guy will draw numbers without repeats. So once it pulls number 45, it cannot draw 45 again. It removes it from the list it's pulling from. I'll make a note. Yeah, if that makes you happy, I can make a note. We're going to talk more about the difference between these when we start making inference, because which method I use affects how I perform my inference procedures. We're going to see this again in semester 2. Focus. I need you guys to come back. Focus. All right. So if you are old like me, you did not have a calculator that could do this. And so the AP board expects that you also know the manual way, which is with a table of random digits. It works the same. The 3 processes are the same. We label everybody in the population. Try that again. We have a randomization step. And once we have our randomized list of digits, we have to then go back and connect those to actual humans in the population with our selection step. The randomized step is where it gets weird. In textbooks for statistics, there used to be like several pages at the back of the book that were just lists of random numbers, row after row after row, page after page after page. 2, 5, 8, 1, 0, 3, 5, just over and over again. And what you do is you read off digits. If that digit is in your list, that becomes a member of the sample. If it's not, you skip it, you move on to the next set of digits. We're going to do an example so you can see what that looks like, because it sounds really weird in words. I think once you see it, it will make sense. So for our example, each year the State Department of Education randomly selects 3 schools from every district and conducts a detailed audit of their attendance records. Use the random digits provided to select a random sample of 3 schools from a list of 19 schools. Explain your process. And you turn to the next page because all the data is on the next page. And if you are an astute observer, you will notice 2 things on the page: a list of schools. How many schools are in that list? They told you on the front page. 19. There's 19 schools in the list. How many do we want to choose from that list of 19? 3. We want to choose 3. 19, I want to choose 3. I want to choose them at random. And you see a list of random digits. This is what the AP board is going to do. They're going to give you a sample population. They're going to give you a list of random digits. The AP board is nice. They will make sure that that list is long enough to do whatever it is you need to do. So we're going to go through our step list. First step, what do I do? Starts with an L. Label. I have to label. Very good. So I'm going to write that down before I do it because they ask us to describe our process. Label each school. And what am I labeling each school with? A number. What is my smallest number? 1. I start with 1. I end with 19 because there's 19 schools. Very good. There is a catch here. 1 is a 1-digit number. 19 is a 2-digit number. I need all my numbers to be the same size. How do I turn a 1-digit into a 2-digit? Stick a 0 in front. Very good. So 0, 1, 2, 1, 9. So I'm going to go through our list and do that. Yeah. Should I go rows or columns? Columns. Okay. So 01, 02, 03. That's in my way. 04. Yes, Bailey.
How is it random if it's like an alphabetical order?
So the list doesn't need to be random. The selection process needs to be random. That was a good question. Most lists start out alphabetical because that's a common way for humans to organize lists. As long as the selection is random, we're okay. Which brings us to our next step, which is the randomized step. I'm going to do it, and then we will articulate it in words. So the idea is my digits are 2 numbers long. Yeah? 0, 1, 1, 3. So I'm going to pick numbers off in pairs. If they're in my list, I found a member for my sample. If they're not, I cross them off and move on. So I'm going to start with 6, 2 is 6, 2 in my list. No, cross it off. Next pair is 08. Is 08 in my list? Perfect. So the first member of my sample is school 08. I'll worry about who that is later. I need two more. Next one is 18. Is that in my sample? Yes, 18. We keep going. Next one is 73. That's a no. 74 is a no. 09 is a yes. I now have three numbers in my list. I needed three schools. I am done with step 2. The trick is the AP board wants me to explain what I just did in words. So how do we articulate step 2? So we chose numbers from the list. We started on the left, yeah? So start on left side of random digits list. And I'm choosing numbers in groups of 2. And then how did I select which ones became my sample? Louder, Bree.
If the number was in the list of schools above.
Good. So if it was between 01 and 19. I need to tell people when I am going to stop. What was my stopping condition? 3 schools, yeah. Stop when I have 3 schools. So, I have my list of 3 numbers. 08, 18, 09. Last step. Write down the schools. So I'm selecting the schools from the list. Match numbers with schools. Yeah. So we go up to the list. School number 8 was Harrelson. Harrison Elementary School. School 18 was Walker Elementary. And school number 9 was Holloway Elementary. And these 3 schools, that is the weirdest little curly bracket I've ever done. These 3 schools are my sample. The question is, if we found the right sample, why did I have to go through all that writing process? Also, FRQ. If you want full credit on the FRQ, both pieces. Yeah, both pieces. If it's a multiple choice question, this part is enough because they're not going to see your work. But it is FRQ. This is what they mean by describe your process. You cannot be afraid of writing those sentences. No, they don't have to be long because they know that you've only got like 13 minutes per question, right? We're not expecting a 2-page essay, but it needs to be descriptive enough that if somebody else were to look at it, they could repeat your process without knowing anything else. I would say if you have time, write the word out, but yeah, if you get short, common abbreviations that are commonly known should be okay. It needs to be something that's obvious. Everybody knows that that means number. Yeah. Good. Okay, questions on SRSs? No. Okay, good. The next three we're going to do a little faster because they're all based on an SRS. The first one is a stratified sample. Stratified samples sort the population into groups based on characteristics of interest. I sort my population by age range. I sort my population by gender. I sort my population by economic background. Yes? I am sorting them based on some characteristic. We call those groups based on a certain characteristic strata, which is why this is stratified sampling. Once I have sorted my group into strata, I am going to collect an SRS from each strata. Once I've collected all those SRSs, I squish them together to form my sample. The reason we do this is it guarantees that all of the subgroups in my population are represented in my sample. It guarantees that my sample is representative of the population based on my characteristic of interest. That is super important. So if I am concerned about making sure that a certain type of characteristic is represented, this is the way to go. Joel speaking. Sure, I'll send her down. Bye. Aaliyah, they need you in ASB. All right. I'm going to give you about 60 seconds in your small groups. How could we take a stratified sample of students from Rancho San Juan High School students? How would I stratify them? What would that look like? You've got 60 seconds. All right. I need to bring us back. I don't even need a volunteer. I heard the most common one out there. What was everybody's first instinct? Grade level, because it's a high school. Yeah. So probably the easiest way to stratify is by grade level. So I would sort all of my Rancho San Juan students into 4 groups. I have all of my 9th graders. I have all of my 10th graders. Those silly underclassmen. And then we have all of our juniors and seniors, which are our wonderful upperclassmen. And the question is, what do I do with those strata? I sorted my population. That's still 1,000-something students. Next step. SRS, very good. SRS from every group. So I am going to take an SRS of my 9th graders. I'm going to take an SRS of my 10th graders, all the way down. SRS from every group. Simple random sample. Simple random sample. You are welcome. Simple random sample. That is our tongue twister for statistics. Simple random sample. because we are going to say it over and over and over again all school year. Simple random sample, simple random sample, simple random sample. Once I have collected those simple random samples, I squish all of the simple random samples together to form my sample for the study. A slight comment before we move on to the next type of sample. With stratified sampling, you will often see that those SRS sample sizes, so these individual samples, not the total sample for the study, have a size that is proportional to the population subgroup they were pulled from, meaning if this school had more freshmen than anything else, the SRS of freshmen would be bigger than the SRS of the other groups because we had more of them to start with. So it's not just that I want to make sure every group is represented, I want to make sure every group is represented proportionally. Yeah, if I am at a school that is 90% female, I do not want to have a sample that is 90% male. That is not representative of my population. Yeah, those proportions need to match. Good, next one is very similar, and students get them confused all the time. So I am warning you right now, you need to make flashcards for these two sampling methods. I know, that's why I'm warning you, yeah? The next one is called cluster sampling. And the reason that they get so confused is the first step is the same. For cluster sampling, we also take our population and split it into groups. So it sounds deceptively like stratified, but it is not. The reason it is not is how these groups are formed. For stratified sampling, I sorted my group by a characteristic of interest: gender, age range, income level. I wanted to make sure that all the subgroups are represented. For cluster sampling, these groups typically already exist, and ideally, these groups are fairly similar in nature. Zip codes, counties, school districts. I didn't have to go make those entities. They already existed in the real world. Helps if my pen is working. And you may be thinking to yourself, doesn't grade level also fall in this category? And you would be correct. Grade level also falls in this category. What we do with grade level is what makes this different. When we make these choices from clusters, I am not going to take a simple random sample from every cluster. That would just put us back in the stratified category. I am going to make an SRS of the clusters themselves. Meaning, if I were doing this for Rancho San Juan grade levels, I would make a simple random sample of one grade level, and I'd just interview everyone in that grade level. Everyone in the selected samples, or the selected clusters, forms our sample. If I'm looking at zip codes in California, I would do an SRS of like 10 zip codes, and then I'd send a survey to every single household in those selected zip codes. So stratified is a simple random sample of people from every group. Cluster is a simple random sample of the groups themselves. Some groups are chosen, some groups are not. The ones that are chosen, everyone in them gets interviewed. You are going to practice this on Friday to get a better visual sense of what that looks like. Yeah. But it is important you have those things separate in your head, because those two are going to kill you on the multiple choice if you don't recognize the difference. There is always a question about these on the multiple choice. Okay, really quick. Take about 60 seconds in your small group. How could we collect a random sample of voters in California using cluster sampling. Got 60 seconds. Jala speaking. I'm good. How are you, Bernie?
Oh, never mind. I thought they like the
Martin? Yes, I will send her down. Bye. Isabel, they need to see you in ASB. They're hopping today. I would assume so because it's close enough to the end of the period. Sounds like we're off task, so I'm assuming we've answered the question. Do I have a volunteer who can walk us through how we would do this? By county. So Maraline's suggestion is we take a simple random sample of counties. I'm investing lots of time writing it down, so it can't be bad. So I am randomly selecting counties, a couple of counties, 5 out of the 50 some odd counties that California has. And what am I doing with those counties? Cluster sampling. Who gets included? Everybody in those counties. So all voters in those counties are going to get a survey. Counties. Why all voters and not all humans? Not all humans vote. Yeah, the same reason that you don't typically get census packets when the U.S. runs the census. You guys are still minors. You are not the head of a household. You cannot vote. Unfortunately, lots of things you cannot do yet, and so you don't get counted in that sample. I feel your pain. I didn't turn 18 until like halfway through my freshman year of college, so I also got picked on in my poli-sci class when they started talking about voting, and I was the only kid in the room who couldn't vote. I feel your pain. All right, I need your focus for like 5 more minutes, and then we will be done with the notes, and you can have homework time. Last sampling. The last of the random methods is called systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is nice in that it does not require a lot of technology. You'll notice the last two, cluster and stratified, at some point I had to make a simple random sample. And we know for large groups that's going to involve tech. This usually does not involve tech. This was a really easy way to go when I was in class in the 90s at Hartnell, and I did not have a fancy calculator or a laptop or the internet or anything else to help me. And the process for systematic sampling is we put all of the individual people in the population in a list. That is nice because even before the internet and technology, lists of people existed everywhere. They were just on paper or in a notebook or in a file folder. The randomization step comes in choosing a random starting point in the list. Lots of ways we could do this. A table of random digits would serve just fine. I know how long my list is. I need to choose a number between 1 and the end of the list to start from. Want to make it random. Once I found my starting point, I'm going to count every kth person on the list, and they become my sample. Every 5th person on the list, every 10th person on the list. Pick a number, and you count. So starting point, skip 4 people, choose a person. 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 What? So you can choose this number. It needs to be consistent. You can't skip 3 and then skip 5 and then skip 3 and then skip 5. It needs to be consistent because that's helping ensure that that randomness condition stays met. We started at random, so every 5th person is also going to be random because we started randomly. Yeah? That's good. So we would want this to be small enough that I would not run out of people as I'm going down the list, but I am spanning most of the list. Because if I have a list of alphabetical people that is 100 people long, and I only need 5 people for my sample, and I skip 2, I start with like somebody who ends with the last name of M, and then I skip 2, choose another, skip 2, choose another. I only do 5. I'm going to have people that are just last names of M and N. So this needs to be sufficiently big that as I'm selecting my sample, I span most of the list. Because everybody should have a chance to be in the list. So yes, we have control over it, but there are some limitations. That was a good question. Okay, you'll notice there's more in that packet. We will talk about that next week, which is why the 3C homework or the 3B homework is not due until after homecoming. Hoko is next Friday. Homecoming game is Friday, dance is Saturday. Focus, focus. I have not released you yet, and the bell is not close to ringing. Focus. Shh. Okay. Reminders before I set you loose. You have 2 things that are due right now, which is Unit 2 project due Monday. Homework 3A is due Monday. When I see you on Friday, we're going to do a pumpkin picking activity. That will also be due Monday. Please use the last 12 minutes of class time to get some work done. Nod your head yes, that you heard me. Very good. If you have questions, I am available after school in the ASB room because we're supervising floats. I am available in the morning tomorrow. Otherwise, send me an email. Yes? All right, you've got the rest of the period to work. Let me know if you have questions.